This is episode 19 of the podcast Communicate Like This. Episode 19 is titled An Interview with Chris Olson, Part 1. Today we're going to do something brand new for Communicate Like This, and that is we're going to do an actual live interview with someone about all of these core values and principles and the communication tools that we've been learning about. Chris Olson is a director for a processing and packaging company in the Lacey area, and he has about 60, 65 people reporting to him in that area, but he's got a lot of departments within that. So he, on almost a daily basis, is using or trying to use these communication tools because he's got so many people that are interacting with one another on a daily basis with different concerns, different departments, different things that bring them to work every day. So the opportunities abound for Chris in this kind of more crucible environment, if you will. So while we'll touch on some work things, again, Communicate Like This is designed for personal interactions that are applicable in work. So we're not only going to talk about the interactions that Chris has on a daily basis at work, but also about some personal opportunities that he's had over the years to employ these communication tools that we've been talking about. So with that, Chris, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Dan. Thank you.
Thanks.
Maybe not all, but I try my best.
Thanks for being here. Chris, let's just start with the first time you ever heard about core values and principles and what you thought about them, and maybe, how long ago was that? And then tell me what you think about them now.
Again, humbled for the opportunity. Thank you for the invite.
Sure.
I first heard about the concept of the core values and principles at my current company back in late 2016. Honestly, when I first heard about them, or just the concept of core values and principles in general at the company, I had kind of a whatever type attitude. How's it really going to help me? Holier than thou kind of approach. Thinking that there's better things to worry about or more important things to worry about. And ultimately, call it 3.5 years in, was every day I see how much I was wrong. So the older you get, the more you know that you're actually incorrect. So, after learning about the CVPs and kind of trying to implement them, not only professionally but personally in my personal life, I've experienced a great deal of growth, not only just self-growth from my acknowledgement of my growth, but what others have seen and stated to me. Conversations on critical issues tend to be a little less argumentative or end in less arguments. My relationship with my coworkers, both senior management and the ones that directly report to me, have been strengthened. I honestly am a witness and an advocate for the core values and principles and understand how they can be a benefit if utilized. To me, it's sort of a light in the tunnel, the rails that help you avoid getting too far off course. And definitely for me, it's something to believe in, something to latch onto, and something that I feel that should be paid forward to others.
So it sounds like one of the things that I've been talking about in this is the reason for this podcast is to reduce, stress, to reduce arguments, miscommunication, misunderstandings, those types of things. It sounds like you're actually experiencing that. This isn't just some theory that's out there, that's a nice textbook thing, but you're actually seeing those things happen in your life.
Absolutely. I mean, stress levels have definitely diminished now. I have a high desire to not have any stress, but at the same time,
good luck with that. You work,
and that's exactly the point. Something's always going to come up that's going to add some sort of quote unquote stress to your life, and nothing's ever going to be perfect, right?
Yeah.
I use nothing because that's really absolute nothing.
You told me before about an interaction that you had with your dad after you were first learned about the CVPs. Would you tell me about that again? Tell the listeners what happened with that.
Oh man, yeah. Instance with my dad relating to CVPs. As I think back, there's many opportunities in my childhood where CVPs could have been a benefit or would have been a benefit. Mutual understanding, solidifying integrity by having agreed upon deadlines, teamwork, respect, and accountability were a lot of times absent. And as a result, caused many conflicts and heartache, most often leading to hurt feelings, fights, ultimately taking a toll on the family emotionally.
Yeah.
I'd often hear, "You're just like your dad." Well, that can be great, but at the same time, it can also not be so great.
Yeah, because you know what your dad was like. So,
Exactly.
yeah.
So after learning a little bit about the CVPs and starting to instill them, and also reading, your book, Uncommon Sense Management, shameless plug.
Good plug.
Go,
Thank you very
go
much.
get that. I think it's on
Your check is
Kindle.
in the mail.
Personally, I had a heightened sense of self-awareness for myself after reading the book. I was more aware that I was like my dad, but not on the best side of things about my dad. But I wanted to also improve, so maybe why wouldn't he? One day I went to his job. And he was frustrated with an typical know-it-all 20-year-old, and something while he was explaining the issues to me with his coworker, he stated, "I don't have the time to worry about that." Well, this immediately triggered my memory of, from the book about true prioritization and teamwork, where if you really wanted to help fix the problem, you would reprioritize that problem and look at it to help this teammate instead of just putting them down. So, I realized, just as I am, my father really, really could have benefited from that book, and gained a little bit of understanding about core values and principles that he maybe is lacking. Ended up purchasing the book for him, gave it to him, hoped it would help him be more open-minded in the system and some of his issues in work and life, like it does for me. So he's called me and thanked me for it. And
Do you know if he's read it or not and is taking things to heart, or what's happened with that?
I do. There's just some things that he'll pick up, and he'll contact me and tell me thank you and just appreciate the effort for effective communication,
Yeah.
mutual understanding, the need for communication to avoid a lot of arguments ultimately.
Yeah. Or really, that's kind of what drove me to this whole thing in the first place was, I was just seeing too many people in too many arguments that really were kind of pointless because people were talking over one another and past one another and things like that. So yeah, that's good to hear that that's happening. We haven't at this point in the series gone into true prioritization yet, but that is one of the things that we're going to be addressing in the future. So yeah, it's good to hear you bring that up as kind of a prequel or something that's coming up here in the future shortly. Chris, tell me about a time when you first realized that this stuff was actually working to, do the things that I say it's going to do, reduce stress, arguments, misunderstandings, and miscommunication. When did the light turn on for you?
Man, in all actuality, honestly, when I was first presented with the book, it was a reading assignment at work, and again, I was not someone that enjoys reading too often. Since I picked it up a little bit more, but I scoffed at the idea. It was just like, I even put it off, like last minute, like make sure that you get it, done before the deadline. I had better things to do. Sports Center's on, LeBron's on tonight.
Yeah,
The Raiders were playing, whatever it may be. When I actually began reading the book and prioritizing it and learning about what was in the book, and relating to CVPs, became almost addicted to learning about core values and principles and what they meant and how they impacted other people. So I had a hard time putting the book down, and at times staying up late into the night, not watching TV, not watching those games, but instead reading the book, learning about core values and principles. When I began to utilize the training tools from the book with my coworkers, I pretty much saw immediately the suggestions and the training offered in the book worked. I had to continue learning, but learning doesn't, it's a never-ending process.
So you don't need to be an expert on this stuff really in order to utilize some of the tools.
Just understanding, like, let's take effective communication, for example. In relation to this, I'm watching a game at one of my buddies' house on Sunday afternoon. It's a priority of his and mine to get together every Sunday when the games are on and watch the games. His wife was cleaning up and she had her father coming over. Well, she wanted her father to obviously see her house nice and clean when he got over there. So his wife, my buddy's wife, asked my buddy if he would take the garbage out. And he was like, yeah. Well, me knowing effective communication,
So when are you going to, that is back to the who will do what by when type of deal.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So what he wants to do right now is obviously watch the game What she wants him to do right now is take the garbage out because she needs that done right now. But without that being stated as when are we actually going to do this? So we're on the same page.
Yeah.
But what'd you say in an earlier podcast? That's when the fight started?
Yeah.
Well, it didn't in this case, but I chuckled because I understand the need for that effective communication and to be on the same page. And they asked me both, like, what are you laughing at? And I was like, well, your priority is to watch the game. Her priority is to get the garbage taken out right now. You guys both want something, but haven't agreed when you're going to take the garbage out. In her mind,
Yeah.
she's thinking right now. In your mind, you're thinking at halftime.
Yeah.
And again, that's where you guys can start fighting, So identifying that, putting that effective communication out there, understanding the need for that. Oh yeah, it helps a lot.
Cool. That's cool. So, Chris, you've got a son named Keenan, right?
Correct.
Yeah. How old is he?
Keenan is 5. He will be 6 next month. On the 20th. Wild man.
That's his nickname, Wild Man.
That's his nickname.
Does he know that he's the Wild Man?
Absolutely.
Outstanding. Tell me about maybe some of the tools that you've been able to use with him to either encourage his cooperation. My wife came up with that particular question. I was going to phrase it as to get him to do what you want him to do, but that seemed a little too manipulative. Or, how you can use those tools to explain things to him more clearly. Anything come to mind there?
At one point I heard somewhere, I can't recall where it was, maybe a podcast I was listening to in the past, maybe from some mentor along the way. There's ultimately 3 ways to communicate. You got a jovial or a say it for what it is, a child way of communicating with blaming somebody else and giving the responsibility off to somebody else. Mm-hmm. You have a parental approach where it's like, no, stop, don't, that kind of approach to
kind of the commanding.
Correct. And then you have really the ideal or the adult way to deal with conversation and explaining the why and then understanding that from both sides, what it is, why are we being asked to do that, and not putting people in a state of perplexed unknown with don't stop, just do this. You're being told this. So a lot of times with my son, I try to implement that in anything that I'm talking to him about. Why I'm asking him to do that. Why I'm asking him to speed up. Why I'm asking him not to jump off the couch and, be the wild man that he is. In relation to any of that.
Yeah.
Try to understand why so it's not a no, don't stop.
So kind of bringing him over to your side of the table so that you're on the same page about, you're not just saying don't or stop. There's a reason for it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And I mean, generally, backing it up with not even no, don't stop.
Mm-hmm.
You may end up doing this if this happens.
Right.
You still have the choice, but this is why I would tell you no, don't stop.
Right.
So, are we going to have to go to the hospital if you break your shoulder? Yeah, probably. But I don't know if you're going to do that again next time.
Right.
When somebody would be saying, no, don't stop.
Yeah. And that reminds me of, again, one of the things that we've talked about in an earlier episode from my friend Mark, who talks about things, phrasing them positively as opposed to negatively, because the negative, the brain absorbs that. And so when you say, don't forget, then your brain is only going to hear forget. The brain doesn't hear the negative thing. It hears forget. So if you can rephrase that in a more positive way, as in remember to do this, that's what your brain is going to hear. And then that's what you'll remember. And you remember then instead of forgetting.
Mark must be that name. You got that information from Mark?
Yeah.
I believe I got said information with no, don't stop from a gentleman named Mark.
My guess is the same guy. Tell me about a time when you used the CVP of effective communication kind of deliberately, and what specific communication tool you used to get to that mutual understanding without fighting and misunderstanding and stress and all that.
Well, personally, I think if there was an instance that just comes off my head, since we're talking about my son, early on, I was to pick my son up on one of my days that I have him. I have him half the time. His mom has him half the time.
Yeah.
I was to pick him up at my grandmother's house, and I get to the house after I get off work, and my son's not at the house. So of course, me being the defensive being that I am, get instantly flared. But stay within myself to be able to at least communicate with his mother that there was an agreement that he was going to be at my grandmother's house. He's not here, and there was no communication that said we're going to be somewhere else, to find out that they were actually at her parents' house, which is 20 minutes away. No big deal. I'm still going to go get him. But at the same time, the communication would have been nice, so I would have avoided going to my grandmother's house. So I just asked her that we work together and we respect each other's time. We keep integrity to, doing what we're saying we're going to do. And if something comes up along the way, that it's okay to communicate those changes in the betterment for all parties, I believe.
Yeah. Just another shameless plug here. You just mentioned integrity and that concept of doing what you say you're going to do when you say you're going to do it. That's going to be the next episode for Communicate Like This is focusing on integrity and what it really means and the practical impacts of how you can better communicate. Tell me what one of the core values and principles we talked about is communication, is continuous improvement. What's that mean to you, and how do you put that into action?
Honestly, Dan, this is a big one for me. Could probably be my favorite CVP.
Yeah, in what way?
It's helped me just keep the front of my approach to improvement, looking for areas to improve on. AGB, always get better. Every day. Look to make something better today than it was yesterday. At this minute over what it was the last minute. Continue to get better in any regard. A lot of accountability and things come into play with that, and tough conversations with self. But understanding faults and working to improve them, you have to be able to accept them. Yeah. Another one of my big issues is being defensive, has been, that I work on. So at times it hasn't been that easy to accept that. But with the CVP lingering out there of continuous improvement, it's something that you look forward to now. You make a mistake and it's like, all right, take that accountability. You can work past this. And at the same time, you get to improve and you get better.
Yeah.
So to me, again, I don't know if I stated, but I'm very competitive, sometimes too competitive. People that play sports with me probably know that. People that probably worked with me a lot of times know that. And we're, So anyway,
you've kind of channeled that, though.
Absolutely.
Competitiveness to be almost competitive with yourself.
SelfDrive.
Yeah.
SelfDrive every day. I was blessed with the mental stopwatch that is my own, reset button if I get defensive, if that's what I'm timing myself on. Start the timer over, restart it, and see how far I can go the next time. And to me, that's a competitive game.
Before you get defensive.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Or, a big one for me was driving. And not necessarily road rage to the point where I would call it road rage.
Yeah.
But I would definitely get frustrated with other drivers. And at the same time, I'm like, well, it's not their fault that I'm 5 minutes late. So
yeah.
just looking at it from a different perspective, and that's helped a lot too. But If I get mad and while I'm driving, restart the clock. Still trying to make it 20 minutes without restarting the clock about 10 to 12 times, but but we're improving.
Cool. That's good. Well, it's kind of, the deal with Kobe. Kobe recently in the last couple of weeks was killed in the plane crash from a timing perspective, but some of the stories that I've been seeing about him in the news have talked about this Mamba mentality, which I think in large part is continuous improvement. It's driving yourself to be better every day, regardless of what you did yesterday. Be better tomorrow or be better today. And it sounds like you're I know you're a Kobe fan, and it seems to me that you're on that wavelength.
I'm gonna be honest with you.
Yeah.
Kobe as a basketball player, I was not a fan of.
Yeah.
I'm a fan of Michael Jordan when I was growing up. I'm a huge fan of Shaquille O'Neal, and I felt my opinion was that Shaq carried Kobe. As that thing broke apart, Kobe continued on. my love of game and love of the passion, the desire to win, the team camaraderie that he was hard on his teammates.
Yeah.
But he made his teammates better.
Yeah.
He held them accountable to doing a good job and set the example day in and day out. But they weren't with him shooting in the gym, like they say. And when the lights go off and he missed 27 shots, Kobe went to work. So Kobe as a man, Kobe from where he came as a high school kid in the NBA to where he was on that that Sunday afternoon, he inspired millions, if not billions of people. And to me, that's huge. And the drive to do that and the drive to touch other people and have an impact on other people, make everyone better.
Yeah.
Give to others, which in turn makes you better.
Yep.
So more of a person and what he was doing for people than a basketball fan. But as a Northwest native, any Yankee that's good, Derek Jeter, him, Mariano Rivera.
Yeah.
You can't really give respect until they're done playing the game.
Yeah.
60 on the last game, Mamba out. It's tough to say, but could possibly be the greatest.
Yeah. We can debate that off air. What does it mean to align your actions with these core values and principles? I use the line in every episode so far, and I think that I'll continue to use it. Marshawn Lynch's paraphrase of Marshawn Lynch's quote was, "It's all about that action, boss." What does it mean to you to put your actions in alignment with these core values and principles?
Are you a good teammate if you're disrespectful?
No.
If you're not continuously improving, are you taking accountability?
Probably not.
How about a watch? If one of the batteries is dead, does the watch work? If it's,
No.
Is the watch reaching the maximum level of effectiveness if the watch has a broken wristband?
Nope.
Just like the band, the batteries, the dials, watch, many more tools. They got to work together in order to allow that watch to function, right? Mm-hmm. Alignment with CVPs is based on your actions. And I feel the only way that you get our life watch functioning to our benefit is to put all of those things in alignment. Words and action are one in their own, right? You can say things or you can do things, but they're one in their own. You can talk, or you can be about that action, boss. At the end of the day. So I think alignment, watch a lot of TV, whether it's a Visalign or, any kind of line, it's all in order. So if you're not in order with those, if you're disrespectful, you're not treating people with respect, how are you in alignment with principles? So it's the rails. It's something, the square, it's the ropes, as we call them, for life. That
we'll pick up the second half of the interview with Chris Olson on the next episode of Communicate Like This. Remember that you can leave comments directly at the podcast's home site of Libsyn at www.communicatelikethis.com. Your feedback is really important to keeping me on point and maybe keeping Chris on point and maybe keeping you on point. So that feedback makes the podcast more current with real life examples, which is what we're trying to do with this interview with Chris. Many of these concepts that we talked about today are found in my management book, Uncommon Sense Management. So if you want to get at it all at once in one place, pick up that book from Amazon or on Kindle. As Marshawn Lynch said, it's all about that action, boss. Talk to you next time.